My name is Andrew Collister. I'm the Consul at the Australian Consulate General in Bangalore, and very pleased to introduce tonight's panellists. And I'll start with the moderator. Hilary McGeechee is the inaugural Australian Consul General in Bengaluru. Ms. McGeechee is a career officer with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade of Australia. She's an experienced trade negotiator and previously served in New Delhi and Berlin. She also enjoys the outdoors, including cycling and hiking in beautiful Karnataka. Can you please welcome Hilary McGeechee? Our first panellist is Katrina Scarpin. She is an award-winning Australian swimming teacher under the OSWIM licence, Australia's industry standard for swimming and water safety, delivered and recognised across Australia and over 20 countries worldwide. She is visiting to teach Indian swimming teachers in the OSWIM swimming certification, supported by the Australian Consulate General Bangalore in partnership with Swimming Matters. Katrina. Next we have Mr. Nandan Kamath. Mr. Kamath is co-founder and managing trustee of Go Sports Foundation, a national award-winning organisation for elite athletes, and he's co-founder of the Sports and Society Accelerator. He was involved in drafting the Target Olympic Podium Scheme and served as a member of the committee tasked with redrafting the National Sports Code. Can you please make him welcome? And third, we have Hakeem Habibullah, who represented India at the 2000 Summer Olympics in Sydney in swimming. His experience across the sports industry, including as founder and director of Winning Matters Consulting and as managing director India and South Asia of Merthyr Pools India.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the warm welcome, Andrew. Thank you for the generous introduction to all of us sitting here on the stage tonight. Just to set us up a little bit, I'm an Australian official posted to Bangalore, and my team here and I run Australia's diplomatic office in this city, and our wonderful job is to build more ties between Australia and India in Karnataka and also Telangana. And so as an Australian, something that we do with great passion, great pride, but also, hopefully great skill, is sport. And so when we look at ways to build dialogues and build connections in this city and this state, sport is a very natural place to have some of those conversations. So that is what tonight is about. I have a great personal interest in fitness and health, and I think it does wonderful things throughout your life, whether you're a professional athlete or setting yourself up for for your own well-being. So I look forward to tonight's conversation for that reason, but I also look forward to the conversation because tonight I get to ask the questions, and that's not usually my role. So I'm an inexperienced moderator, so be kind to me, panellists. But as Andrew said at the start, we are bringing together Olympic athletes, professional swimming teachers, and Nandan with your broad sports policy expertise. And what I'll be doing is asking a couple of questions of each of the panellists, and we'll have a dialogue from that. And then tonight we'll open up the floor to questions. And my sense of those that I've met here as I came in, it's also a little bit of a celebration of swimming, I think. There's people here from the course that we will talk a bit about. There are obviously people here that work in the swimming industry. We have, because I'm going to point out someone in the front row here, Michelle Wade, who is the Victorian Government's Trade Commissioner. And so very much, I love all parts of Australia equally, but Victoria does hold itself out as a sports capital, Michelle. So we've got a group here with some common interests, but also I hope that you learn something from the conversation, but you also connect for those that are meeting each other for the first time. I think those kind of conversations hopefully spark some new opportunities as well. So without any further ado, I'm going to start with some questions. So Katrina, you are a swimming teacher, you're an expert, you're also here from Australia, you've come in for a particular a professional development course. As you think about, and as I think about Australia, can you tell us a bit about Australia's swimming culture. Why do Australians see swim teaching as important? And I guess what are some of those universal lessons that come from swimming? So if we start with that one.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me, actually. I feel incredibly blessed to be here. So Australia is a very large island, the largest island in the world, and we have, even in my local government area, which is quite a small area, we have 400 waterways. None of those are lifeguarded. Only 2 of them are lifeguarded over a summer period for a very short period of 6 weeks per year. So in Australia, you need to learn to swim if you're going to live in an area where there are waterways everywhere you go. Even my children go to school 500 metres from the beach. So you need to learn to swim. So for me, as a teenager, I actually stepped into the world of swim teaching while I studied at university. And I did a psychology degree. And throughout that time, I continued to teach swimming. I also did an education degree, and I still continue to teach swimming. And I've owned multiple swim schools. And for me, the joy is actually watching those small incremental steps of children learning to swim, their resilience, their ability to problem solve, critical think, and make safer choices around water. We teach them from a really early age about that water safety and how that they can actually, just walking next to water is safer than running. Making sure that you swim with a friend, making sure that there's someone to look after you when you're in the water. Have you got someone watching? Do you know how to call for help if you are actually in some sort of trouble in the water? And these are essential things that swim teachers have to teach in Australia to ensure that we save our children, save our families, and reduce the incident of drowning. And on that point, we have such a large population of immigration in Australia. We have a very diverse range of people that live there, and we are also aiming to make sure that anyone that immigrates to our country is also safer in the water as well. Thank you.
Thank you. That point about diversity in Australia, 1 in 2 Australians are born overseas or have a parent who was born overseas. So that means, I always say Australia is made up of the whole world, and as you say, has an awful lot of waterways. So, we're here talking about swimming excellence and swimming skills, but as much as Australia has a lot to offer, we also have challenges. We have a lot of drownings every summer. So, we do tackle these problems at home and still have a long way to go. But Hakeem, my next question's for you. You asked me if I could swim. Yes, I can, so I can answer that. From your perspective, what is the state of swimming in India? That big question. What are some of the challenges as you see about building world-class facilities, obviously looking towards Commonwealth Games, Olympic ambitions, there's infrastructure questions in there. And then in your work with Swimming Matters, how are you engaging in that space with some of those challenges?
Lots of questions in that.
Yes.
I'll try and be as brief to begin with. So the reason I asked you the question, Hilary, whether you can swim, right, is because one of the biggest challenges in India is we are largely illiterate. Our aquatic literacy is very low. Our quality of engagement with water is very low. We have lots of water bodies similar to Australia. I mean, when you talk about rivers, lakes, ponds, lots of natural waters around us. So we have a lot of water around us. We have a large coastline as well. But because of our lack of understanding of how to effectively engage, we also end up having a significantly high rates of drowning. So for anyone looking at an accident insurance form, after road accidents, the second leading cause of preventable death is due to drowning in India. So, and because of that high level of illiteracy, aquatic illiteracy, a lot of decision makers and people involved in the industry, struggle to really understand what to do and how to do. So when talking about infrastructure, when we're dealing with architects, when we deal with international architects, they normally participate in sport or swim themselves, so they understand and appreciate details that matter. In India, because the people who are involved in the decision-making process do not swim themselves, in the context of this conversation, it doesn't matter. They can cut corners, and then it's somebody else's problem. They don't see it that it's what they're creating is something that's going to impact either themselves or their family or their friends. So it's somebody else's problem, and who cares whether there's 2 filters less in keeping the pool clean, or whether dimensions are appropriate or not. So there's no. So starting with that is also. That also trickles into, for example, the lack of any standards, right? So there's no standards, whether it's for quality of water in a pool or whether it is for dimensions for a particular, infrastructure for community purpose. So this is something which, of course, Nandan is working a lot towards. But how in sport in general, and in swimming in particular, the lack of any standards. So the liabilities are very low for if anything happens. So these are a combination of things that lead to the different challenges that we currently face. But have things begun to change? The answer is yes. From starting with competitive swimming from way back when I swam. Now Indian swimmers don't look like me. I'm 5 feet 6 inches tall, with a foot size of 7.5. Now Indian swimmers look world class. They are all 6 feet 3 inches, and both from the physical change to even the performance in the water, we started seeing the change. But as of now, I would say we are roughly 30 to 40 years behind. Australia, if I keep that as a benchmark. If we need to, I believe we have the potential to catch up, and we'll have to really train harder, smarter, if we need to catch up.
Thank you. I'd never thought about a blind spot in decision makers. If you don't, whether or not you value something, you're not aware of it. As you say, you don't factor it into your architecture or your access points or your drainage or whatever it might be. So I will take that one with me as I think about my own blind spots too. Thank you. So Nandan, I'm going to turn to you now and sort of draw you out with your broader expertise. So Hakeem's answer is about swimming and swimming looking towards the Olympics, really. As you think about India's trajectory towards hopefully hosting the Olympics, certainly Olympic ambitions in swimming, where do you see that pathway is at? Where is it going? And then, of course, with Go Sports, how is that work that you're doing, and what are you aiming for in the next, let's say, the short term, and maybe we can have the longer term after that?
Thank you, Hilary, and thanks for having me here. Hakeem said the Indian swimmers of today don't look like him. Fortunately, they don't look like me either. But I am certainly the second best Indian swimmer on the panel, and very proud of it. And the Go Sports journey, in fact, started with Hakeem and me, and the first persons we supported were a couple of swimmers. So it takes me back to a lot of that journey as well. I think swimming presents a very unique opportunity for India, but also the India-Australia relationship. What has changed in the 15 or 17-year journey of Go Sports is both belief and ambition coming together with intent. There's no doubt that sport now is very much part of what you would call a nation-building project. There is a big nation-building project, and sport has a very frontal role in that. India wants to be a sporting nation, is trying to figure out how to be a sporting nation. In my view, one of the things, the dots that you have to connect is the relationship between spectatorship sport and participatory sport. And the beauty of swimming is it presents you that opportunity to connect those two dots. Intrinsically, swimming is education, I think, like Kat talked about. Not just learning how to swim, but all that comes with it, the values, but also the sort of the way you learn to be confident of your body, but also aware of your surroundings. A lot of that is where participatory sports first kicks in, which is in schools, colleges, and educational contexts, but also seeing it as a sport that you continue throughout a lifetime, without necessarily the goal of winning a medal. And when you're able to balance this great spectatorship potential of India with participatory potential of sport, and there swimming is just one of the examples. But imagine a country that is playing, what it can do for just the socio-economy of sport. You have more people swimming, you have more lifeguards, you have more coaches, you're kick-starting an economy of sport. And the places where we really need to be thinking are the relationship between sports and livelihoods, the relationship between sport and health, and preventing sort of long-term healthcare burdens on the Indian population. And to me, those are the exciting bits of connecting the dots between high-performance sport, which plays that very important ambassadorship role. I mean, Indian women go and win the World Cup. How that changes the micro-beliefs in the economy, right? What a cricket coach says about having a women's program in the academy, what a school principal says about giving leave to a young girl in terms of whether she's allowed to go for a cricket tournament. So the big stuff matters, but the ability to connect the big stuff with the participatory elements of sport, where swimming has so many benefits, that is the exciting bit on this journey between being an aspiring sporting nation and being one which connects these two dots, in my view.
Fabulous, thank you. And to your point about how countries collaborate in sport, of course, cricket has always been there, and in some ways it's a stereotype, but in other ways, because it has so much attention and so much passion, it gives other pathways. And we see that, when we talk about sports and inclusion, we've done some work supporting women's cricket or cricket for the disabled in a women's team, and showing that sport provides, as we talk about, well-being and life skills, but pathways and respect and opportunities that then, whether you take those in the sporting field, they set you up well for life in other ways. So I very much agree with that. And then I sort of putting my day job hat on, which is to represent, the Australian government here in this part of India. We look at the connections between Australia and India at that government to government level, and the prime ministers of both countries have identified sport as a shared interest, and they do that because they think, well, both our communities, our economies, and our identities benefit from collaborating on sport. So it'll always be sport on the playing field, but then it's where else? It's sports education, it's sports tech, it's training of physiotherapists, it's elite sports, sports facilities. Some of those are community, some of those are commercial arrangements, and some of those are individuals, living and working in both countries and maybe other locations. So that ecosystem of sports is potentially a really dynamic one. And I think, so between an Australian Olympic hosting in 2032 and fingers crossed, obviously, India not long afterwards, you end up with an opportunity and an energy in both countries, and that tends to unlock funding, it unlocks decision makers or makes them interested in learning about how to make decisions in that area. And then you get, energy and opportunities. So very much agree with all of that, and hope to see where we go beyond a conversation like this. But Kat, I might come back to you now. And, the point in time that we've built this conversation around tonight is an OSWIM program. And as you are being here and delivering a training program, I met some of the participants tonight, and I've just heard some of the stories and the fact they've come from all across India, which I didn't appreciate. I thought it would be team members here in Bangalore. No, from literally the breadth of this very, very big country. Yes. So with that, can you tell us a little bit about OSWIM? That's a term and a title. Why does it matter to have certifications? What does OSWIM do when we talk about swimming training courses? And I guess, why is that so foundational to then swimming as a participation sport that then you can sort of drive excellence in?
Okay.
There's a lot.
That's a lot of questions.
But,
Oh, hopefully I'll
but
do.
you're the expert, so you get to pick them and answer them as you like.
Thank you. Okay. Let's start from the beginning. OSWIM are the leading educating RTO in Australia, and RTO is a registered training organisation. Myself personally, even though I have an education degree, I also have to have what they call a TAE, which is a training certificate that means that I'm allowed to train other people in a specific field, and my field obviously is swimming. OSWIM are a group of people who got together in 1979, and throughout that time, it's been 40 plus years now, have continued to forge the way for swimming education across Australia. For me personally, I've been training for them for nearly 15 years now, so it's quite a substantial amount of time. And over that time, I have trained, I couldn't tell you how many thousands and thousands of other swimming educators, which is amazing because like that ripple effect, you drop a pebble and it just starts to spread across the pond. And so being able to come here to India today, actually I've been here for 4 days, is an incredible blessing. I get to impart knowledge, skills, understanding, and shared collaboration with the amazing people that I've had on my courses already. Monday and Tuesday we did infant aquatics, so that was infant and preschool, where we learned about how to teach from 4 months to 6 months and onwards from there. And then yesterday we started our TAI, which is a complex needs course. It will be completed tomorrow. The best part about so far this week is that every person who attended the infants course has already been signed off 100% completion rate. So give all my participants a clap, please. Thank you. Following tomorrow, I hope to also have 100% success rate. Over the weekend, we have the TCS course, which is a Towards Competitive Strokes course. And then next week, we also have another infants course as well. So it's a jam-packed schedule. I hope that over that period, we are going to be able to sign off maybe between 60 and 70 teachers in the extension courses. So please give them also a clap because they're present in this room. The beauty of me being here in India is that I have 28 years of experience and I get to impart that on other people, and that's an incredible blessing. And I really hope that the Indian people get to benefit from that knowledge, and that if we can just change one person, it's going to change another person and change another person. But if you just start with one, it's just going to start that whole ripple effect across the country. So it's lovely that so many people came to see us from all over this country to do these courses, and I really hope then that it goes forward into both of your programs, and that you can actually make a massive difference, because isn't the policy 1 billion people learning to swim? Yeah? That's a big ask, right? 1 billion people. I'm happy just to get 60. Does that cover all of your questions? Thank you.
So you are the expert, so you get to answer these things as you would like. Did you want to add something to that? No, you're just preparing for the, ready to go. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Narrative style. I mean, I can remember as a primary school child in Victoria that we would be bussed off to the swimming pool, and Michelle is nodding as well. OSWIM was the part of the primary school curriculum. You would go to the swimming pool every day for 2 weeks for your lessons in your year group, and you would be bus backed. And I'm sure for the teachers it was a nightmare, because you can imagine these kids running everywhere. But I can vividly remember learning to swim. Yes. And you got to the end and you could swim, and every year you expected to progress, or at least it would be part of what you learnt from school. I'm extraordinarily fortunate to have lived somewhere that was part of our curriculum. Absolutely. There's a lot of good luck in what we have sometimes, as well as good management. So that's on the OSWIM side. Hakeem, back to you then, if we're talking about collaboration and ways for Australia and India, but by all means expand this elsewhere, but how can we then best collaborate when it comes to swimming? Is it certification standards, introducing those or developing those here in India, if that's a space to work on? Is it training methodologies? Again, you are the expert. I'm prompting questions, but what does that look like to you? Where do you see that kind of work going?
So here again, the context of OSWIM's journey in India, started during the opportunity I got to go to Australia in 2013. So in 2013, as part of the Australia-India Youth Dialogue, when I went in there, I was asking questions of what is Australia doing in general. I wasn't just focused only on swimming, but I was looking across sports and trying to understand Australian sports, through starting with community right to high performance. And in one of my meetings with the Education Department of New South Wales, that's when I was introduced to this teacher certification for swim teachers called OSWIM. And that's when the light bulb went up. Because in India, there was no title or there was no position of a swim teacher. We had only coaches. Or we had lifeguards. Now, why is that important? Because in both the contexts, one is a lifeguard who would double up as a swim teacher during summer vacations, as a very short-term oriented for an additional livelihood earning opportunity. On the other side, you had a coach. For a coach, the focus was on how could I very quickly get somebody to start competing, even if it meant that they had very poor fundamental skills. So coaches would also get some part for the livelihood, but their livelihood was how many children they could push over into competitive swimming very quickly. So in both these cases, the whole journey of someone learning swimming was compromised. Often force and fear was the way of introducing someone to the water. And for every one of me that survived, probably 9,000 or 99,000 people who just imagine how many lakhs of people go for a learn to swim across the country every summer. And out of that, barely less than 0.0001% survive after those 2 or 3 weeks. So that's when the swim teacher component was what made sense. And I realized that we don't look at it as a part of a longer education pathway. And that's when, again, my life is a series of fortunate accidents. And, I just happened to then meet the right people, and coincidentally, and got introduced to OSWIM. And that was my last meeting in Australia before I've had to fly back. And it's funny, it's now 12 years of our journey with OSWIM in India. And the intent is, again, how we can improve the fundamentals of everyone. So growing up, for all the swimming I did competitively, I was never taught about water safety. I had no idea how to keep myself safe. I had no idea how to save anyone else. It was assumed that if you were a fast swimmer, you're safe and you could save someone else. But there were no skills taught. And I would go to the beach with friends. I would go to water bodies with friends. My definition, I was only aware that I did not know. And so my definition of making sure that nobody did stupid things because there was a fast swimmer with them was by not engaging. So if I would go, because if I would get in the water, they would try to do more stupid things in the water, thinking that I was there to save them. So the only way that both my brother and I had to manage things was to step away and say, I'm serious, I do not know how to save you. I'm not going to save you. I'm going to sit out. Let's watch the beautiful waterfall or let's watch the waves, but I do not know. This is unknown water for me. So, it was these things. And again, when I looked at OSWIM, and OSWIM had the, in its foundation course itself, it had teacher of swimming and water safety. I said, wow, okay, that was the other part. That was a key missing link. So the whole context of water safety, like Nandan said, when we started our journey back into developed sport in India, it was high performance sport that we looked at, and in certain ways, people were like, "Why are you going to the grassroots?" Because teaching is often looked down upon. Even whether it was the lifeguards or anyone else doing it, it was only a short term, and nobody really wanted to do it. Nobody even appreciated what it was. But that was the most critical element in the whole ecosystem, to activate participation, help retain people to love the water for life and keep them engaged, even if they chose to play cricket, for example. But whatever else they play in life or do, water is good for health, rehab, relaxation. So everyone should be connected with the water throughout their life. And that was the motivation. And today we've got close to 700 teachers who've gone through the OSWIM course. And as much as that may sound like a good number, but every time I'm reminded, and I was mentioned to Kat earlier today, when OSWIM, with a population of the size of Greater Mumbai, Australia with the size, having a population of Greater Mumbai, trains 10,000 teachers every year, and they're not the only organization. They are the oldest, and the most respected, but there are others as well. But OSWIM alone trains 10,000 swim teachers a year. So, we are with the potential of making impact, there's a long way to go, and that's the motivation for us in our work. And because if our fundamentals are weak, we cannot really aspire to realize the potential of anybody. Even the few that choose to compete in the pool or beyond in other sports connected to the water, their comfort, confidence in the water is important, and having the right skills, whether it's for safety or for knowing how to convert it into performance, makes a difference in eventually the bucket of medals. Because everyone's, when you talk about the Olympics, just a quick reminder, to everyone, if how important aquatic sport is, right? In LA 28, India, aquatic sports has the largest medal basket. It has 55 gold medals to be won. 41 of that in the pool, in swimming, 2 open water, 2 water polo, 2 artistic swimming, and 8 in diving. So that's 55 gold medals. Now, if you add the other sports that are connected with the water, triathlon, modern pentathlon require you to swim. It's an essential element. Then you have surfing, for which you need to be in the water before you get on board. And then you have sports on the water, like sailing, canoeing, kayaking. If you add up all of that, there are over 100 gold medals at the Olympics connected with the water. So, and that's the able-bodied one. Then you talk about parasport, like Nandan will probably share more on what Go Sports is doing and how they have transformed para. But para swimming, for example, has 142 gold medals. 142 gold medals to be tapped into. We've not yet picked from that basket. We started doing well, but that's the immense performance opportunity that's there. So while the foundations are to get everyone in India to love the water and swim, but from a performance angle, that's the potential that India needs to start, playing at that level.
It's not often I hear an Australian statistic that's bigger than India. So the swimming teacher, number of swimming teachers is a really interesting point. With that opportunity, as a follow-up question, if I may, what do you think might make a difference? If you're looking for types of cooperation or collaboration, I'm putting you on the spot, but is there a pathway you think, well, this form of cooperation works quite well, or we'd like to see more of this? It could be private sector, there's any field to that, but what sparks your imagination as a way of building that?
So I think again, this is the first pathway we found. The teacher was, playing a very crucial, pivotal role, both from a safety perspective, as well as enabling performance, as well as creating an economy around things. Because again, I'm just digressing slightly from your thing, but it's also important because sport very often is looked at as, in India, it's still donation-oriented. It's still, I think it's more, someone has to help. Otherwise we can't do it. The beauty of what we've attempting to enable and what we've also shown as a possibility is that swim teaching is well rewarding, even economically rewarding job that, so you can earn very well. Today, just for context, in Bangalore, some of you are already in the industry. In Bangalore, a swim teacher, even who's still studying, who's 18 years of age, has the potential of earning more than an engineer after they pass out. So both from a demand and opportunity perspective, there's crazy amount of possibilities. But so one is about, of course, this which has begun, but there's lots more to go. Like I said, the potential and possibilities are really massive. Where can Australia, again, add value is, one of the challenges we also face is the reference to context. So today, like we had, one of the Australian swim teachers, helping us out as well, and he brought up a very interesting observation. Our reference is what we see next to us. Right? So if the swimmers swimming in that lane, especially a lot of the open water swimmers and lap swimmers, they're all swimming with very poor fundamentals, very poor technique, but they become the benchmark because they are the open water swimmers of this, they're doing many competitions nowadays, so either them as or for a parent who has not seen competitive swimming, that's reference. If my child can scramble from here to there, that's enough. We can stop. While in Australia, like he gave the context, that almost every community will have some high quality swimmer in their neighborhood. So their reference to context is very different. So they know that they still have a long way to go. And so here everyone it's still an early stage of educating. So if we can get better context setting, right? It will be like what happened with cricket and IPL. The minute they set up something, it created an opportunity for high quality athletes to come here and for the Indian ecosystem to also learn, whether it was sports science, whether it was everything else connected, in enabling the performance of the athletes. So whether it's a league or whether it's even training opportunities, where there is athletes coming in at a junior squad level or even at high performance to either train or compete, allows for learning opportunities on both sides. Because as much as India can learn from, of course, some of the very high quality coaches that even I've had the opportunity to interact with from Australia, one of the things that I came across with Australia is a different problem here. Because they got access to many things, I understood that they take things for granted. So, I said, bring them over here, they will probably have more appreciation when they go back home. So, of some of the challenges that are encountered here. So it could work in different ways, but bringing in athletes along with their coaches, I think could allow for, interaction, social engagement, pathways, friendships, everything else, the soft things, along with a lot of other parallel learning that will come with it.
Thank you. I mean, we see some of that sort of sports, visiting sports teams. Cricket is a reference point, but it's not the only one. And I do think that, to your last point, that the soft part of it, so people, you visit another country, you live, you learn, you make friendships, and they, particularly at a young age, spark connections and collaborations that, hopefully go on for decades. So, yeah, I think the soft side is also very important. Nandan, last question with you, and then heads up everyone, I'm going to open the floor, so think of your questions. With that broader view you have then, Australia and India sports collaboration, cooperation, ways to work together, again, looking big picture, elite sport, but other sports pathways. What do you think are the right choices to make? Where are the opportunities to pursue? What lessons should I, as an Australian in the room, take away and think about that I should be encouraging in Australia too?
That's a great question. Just to give some background, when I was young, the first language I learned was English. The second was Australian, and the third was Kannada. So I learned Australian from Richie Beno and Tony Greig, waking up at 5 a.m. in the morning. But there's something to be said for that. Wherever I've gone in the world, I just sort of was attracted to making Australian friends. The relationship was built completely virtually, but the first time I met an Australian, I could understand what they were saying, which is not something you can take for granted, but was very valuable. Many of my friendships, actually, some of my closest friends are Australian. I work with an Australian the last 20 years. We worked together. The thing that amazes me when I go there is how deeply integrated sports is in culture and in the day-to-day. When we travel with his family, there's no day that goes by without them having to jump in the pool. So the relationship with water. He's as amazed with my ability to cross the road in Bangalore, which doesn't come naturally to an Australian. So there are things to learn from each other. Living in the chaos of a country like ours, but still making good choices. Living in the luxury of Australia, like Hakeem talks about. But when you look at the whole ecosystem and its growth, I don't think there are places where there isn't an opportunity to build relationships. It could be business, it could be just the business of governance. We have a long way to go in understanding how we institutionalize sport in our country. We've got to the point where we want to be large and want to be high impact and scale, but we haven't put the pathways and the sort of the structures in there. When I look back at the Australian journey, and we take a lot of inspiration from the Australian Institute of Sport, started in 1980, 1981, programs of its own. But it's not just the vision of what sports science could do for Australian sport, but the fact that in 2013, they just actually stepped back and said, our job is done, and now we've built the capacity in the ecosystem, and we are available to all of the federations as a place to come and train. So having redundancy built into a model where your job at the beginning is to create something, but then be able to leave it behind and then take a step back. And that is areas in which international collaboration is extremely valuable, because you're not building a dependency, but you're building a capability and then being able to step back. I think sports science, governance, and sort of the learning how to train, and coaches leaving behind knowledge and information like Kat is doing here is going to be the next wave of where we can learn and grow, because the things that we lack are neither ambition nor capital, and to some extent not infrastructure either. The things we lack are actually capacity, and that's governance capacity, but also implementation capacity, and our ability to transform from what I call projects to organizations, and from organizations to institutions. And I think Australia has done a reasonably good job of that. And those are very distinct, different things. We have thousands of projects going on in India. Very few organizations, and even the big organizations you hear of have not institutionalized. They're very people-centric, they're very leader-oriented. But if you want to leave something behind after you're gone, you have to be able to build institutions. And that ability is something that has to be put into sort of Indian growth mindset. I feel like those are areas in which we can learn a lot from sports nations that aren't just obsessed with medals. I mean, I know Australia has gone through its own phases of being obsessed with medals, but moved beyond that as well. In building a really healthy, balanced ecosystem where the first focus is on making sure kids play and have space to play, open spaces. Anytime you go to Australia, within 10 or 15 minutes walking is a place to go and play anything you want to do. Here, where lots of our infrastructure is locked up, highly dependent on parents to take you to locked up infrastructure. So the barriers are very significant at early stages of growth. If we can work on that alongside our Olympic ambitions, I think we have a lot to learn from systems that have figured it out. Obviously, I mean, the scale of the challenge and the nature of the challenge is different. So we want I would say the learnings, but also want to be able to customize to our own contexts. And I think there is the unique opportunity to come with knowledge and stay with customization, if I can put it that way.
Thank you. As I was sitting here before and talking to everyone at the start, I was thinking, what is it about sport in Bangalore? How does that, in swimming particularly, have, this is the capital of swimming, that entrepreneurial spirit somehow? And I think that almost goes to your customization point. How do you then bring in, what is the right mix? What is the scale here? What is right for Bangalore? What is right for a broader Indian sporting context? It's got to be a fusion, and so much of that connection between Australia and India is about identifying that yes, there's a connection, but how do you make the magic happen? So governance always sounds a little bit dry, even to a public servant like me. But I agree with you in that it moves things from project to, a goal, and something like an Olympics in 2036 is not a short-term project. It is building, 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 building. So that really has to be part of that effort, doesn't it? So I think it gives us lots of ideas to take away and put in our mind. But what I also hope it does is for those sitting here tonight that you've got questions for us. So we have a wonderful range of panellists in swimming and sports and sports policy in all different fields, and then people like me who just know bits about Australia. So I'm going to open the floor and see who is feeling inclined to ask a question. It could be an idea you have, it could be something you've heard that piques your interest.
This is a little bit of a devil's advocate question, so please don't mind it. But I want to put you on a spot to think of it from an India perspective, that there are many sports. India is a big market coming on the global scale. And while cricket is 90% of that market, share of funds, viewership, there is an attempt being made by other sports to get some of the economics, viewership. Football is one such example. The question that I have is, we were colonized, British maybe brought cricket to India. Why did swimming, we have so many water bodies, so much border which is around water. Why did swimming not happen? If there is any history to that. And can you help make a case for swimming versus other sports which are eyeing for this economics? Why not running? Why not Kalaripaitu? We should be careful for not aping without thinking. What is good for us? So I want to use this as an opportunity for you to tell that why we should be focusing on swimming versus other things.
Sure. I think whoever wants to take that, do you want to? And I might have a comment.
Again, good question. I think Nandan and I have had long conversations of cricket versus other sports. I grew up hating cricket, because it felt unfair for the amount of attention it got versus other sports did. But the more I even interacted and understood, it was not cricket's fault. Cricket did a good job of what they did and the way they presented themselves and the way they created the pathways that they did. So I think aping, like you correctly said, is not the right way to do it. But each sport has its own unique deliverables to a community. And the fact that we are discussing swimming does not mean that any other sport should be, we don't care about any other sport. What I mentioned earlier as well, at least swimming in the context that I've seen, and it connects everybody. The water connects everybody. So the water, even whether you play Kalaripayattu or you play tennis or you play cricket or football, everyone uses the water for rehab, recreation, leisure. So that's way from keeping safe, whether you're engaging in open water or whether you want to engage for your mental and physical health. Water is good for everyone. So from that angle, I would say there's a window of opportunity, and it's a life skill, and it's a life-saving skill. Okay, which again, not many other sports, give that opportunity.
Further to Hakim's point, you actually pointed out what I was actually going to say. And I think the most important thing is that there is no, one sport that's more important than others, but it is a lifelong skill. It's an aquatic journey from birth to death. And having heard the horrendous statistics here in India of between 90 and 130 drownings a day, this is something that is really essential to your country to keep your people safe, or not safe, but even just safer. If you could learn how to self-rescue, if you can learn how to float, if you can learn how to call for help if you're in trouble, and if you have someone around you who knows how to help you in that situation, that creates a much safer India. So I think that's a really good point.
I just wanted to add, a lot of people think cricket is only a spectator sport, but it's also the largest participatory sport. It figures out different formats. You can play one person, two people, three people. You have a basketball court, you play cricket on it. You have a football court, a pitch, you play cricket. The one place you can't play cricket is the swimming pool. So there is hope for swimming. So
There's an underwater cricket association that gets created. I mean, there's an underwater football, an underwater hockey.
So the economy of all of those sports can be looked at. But more seriously, it is also one of the mother disciplines. So you look at athletics, gymnastics, and swimming. You want to play any other sport, they're great starting points. We have, when you talk about policy, we have a serious issue of, in Indian sport, premature specialization. Because we do not have a balanced setup, children are picking sports way too early and just sticking with one sport. If you look at sports science theory, I'm not a sports scientist, but specialization, the longer you delay it, if you can delay it to 13, I think you're best off there, where kids are playing at least 2 or 3 different sports. And if you were to pick a roster of sports for kids to play multiple sports, swimming would be up there for any other sport if you want your child to be good at. So I think that there is a lot of that, but the reality is, what's the difference between an Australian living context and an Indian living context? How many of us have free and safe places to swim walking distance away from us? It'll be in the 1% range, right? Very different from an Australian context where you live near the ocean, you have public pools. So just underestimate the access to easy infrastructure. So many of our sporting opportunities, like I talked about earlier, are highly dependent on an adult taking you there and paying a fee and getting in. There's very few places where kids can play safely and try and experiment. We underestimate the role of sampling of multiple different sports because we are in a system that wants you to be junior world champion, world number 1, to keep getting the rewards and funding and other things like that. You want someone to be a swimmer at 6 and you're celebrating someone being the youngest something. Do they have a long, fulsome career? Very rare that someone who's the first at something or the youngest actually succeeds at the senior levels. So just balancing the ecosystem also has a role in unlocking potential for people to try different things, to enjoy these mother disciplines without what you would call the imposition of excellence metrics very early on. Just like to add that. And you can't play cricket in the pool.
Someone does, I'm sure. Thank you. Gentleman in the blue blazer, I think, was next. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Venu, and I'm from KPMG's sports advisory team. First of all, thank you for such an insightful discussion, and I think you pretty much covered most of the things that I was about to ask in the question. But I just feel like you rightly said, it's a life skill, right? And the other part of it is from a medal perspective, from an Olympic medal perspective. So what are some of the challenges that you foresee from a talent identification perspective? Because, like Nandan said, it's a very infrastructure intensive sport. Unlike cricket, where you could actually spot talent on the road as well, right? That this guy has a great bat swing or a great action, right? How do you identify or maybe even think about putting somebody in that specific sport, or think that, that could be a potential winner for India in the future? Is that something that you are trying to address, maybe using, say, some metrics or technology, or, how do you kind of identify that?
I think there's still some journey to get there. I think the first step is, how do we improve the base itself, right? How do we make swimming accessible? Like Nandan said, how do we, access is one key challenge. So unlocking that is a key point. Today, things are happening. Now there's so many other businesses. So swimming, like I said, is one of the best businesses that, today you talk about cult, game theory, Machaxi. There are different brands that are coming up. Swimming is one of their most highest revenue earners. So there's a business model that's there. Ironically, what at least we've observed recently is we got more adults in the water than children. Children have less access time than adults now. It's a bit of a, which also means that there is another opportunity, that is there. So first is about creating access, creating more people to even just enjoy the water. In terms of specifics from the medal winning perspective, there's always the inorganic way. Like I always feel, someone who's, if you look at it, possibly we got to go fishing in the basketball courts and volleyball courts and get them, to learn or build on their swimming skills. So that's something which there could be different ideas, but this is like one of them that is required. So today we got multi-sport setups. In Bangalore there are many multi-sport setups where there's an opportunity. Like I said, if people come, if everyone is engaging with the water, and we are creating those pathways of different levels of competition, talent will find its way. So that's what cricket did. Like Nandan said, I mean, you got it to a level where everyone can play different formats, and somebody gets identified and then can be given more formal training. As more people get opportunities and access, now the definition of talent is the other challenge, because like again, Nandan pointed out, we tend to say someone is talented very early. So it's funny, if I reflect back, I was a very good age group swimmer, and because I was good at age group, I just kept getting pushed ahead, and I kept consistently being on the top, so I was on the top. Everyone assumed I was talented. There were many others who at grade 8, grade 9 were my height, and they were not performing as well, and they were told you're not good enough and you should stop. When I met them in engineering college, 3 years later, they were a foot taller than me. But they were already out of the system because they were told you're not good enough. So they could have been a much better swimmer than I was. But, so we need to retain talent much longer. We got to get them to start performing at a different age point. And and that's currently the immaturity that we're living in. Everyone wants early success. And, so most of the swimmers retire with, a cabinet full of medals by the time they're 13 years old. They've won a lot of medals, and, they retire to do other things in life. So that's a thing we need to change.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Annette, and we just met earlier today. So I work for the Queensland government, and I understand things from both the perspective, because I'm an Indian representing Queensland government here, and I know what capabilities Australia brings, and so does India. So my question is very simple, and also going back to the question of, cricket having 90% share in the Indian market. And I think one of the major reasons is it's not a part of a curriculum. And it's also because we don't have that kind of infrastructure in place. So my question is, specifically to Nandan and you, is what are your organizations doing something to kind of train institutes and schools to start early, where, little children could start going for training? That's number one. Number two is, India has this aim to bid for the 2036 Olympics. Brisbane is hosting the 2032 Olympics, and that's because we have the infrastructure in place. So what are you all doing in terms of getting that infrastructure?
So you said it's a simple question. Those are actually the toughest ones.
I'll take it forward, but you go ahead.
So just, reality check, a significant proportion of schools in India don't even have a playground, let alone a swimming pool. Yeah, so we're talking for 30-40% of schools are literally buildings. So it's a pretty high bar to put it into a curriculum. The national education policy suggests shared resources, and if there is a pool, but a pool is a very significant amount of space, also investment. Very few schools have it, but there are many schools which now have pools, which is already a step up. Putting it into a curriculum, I think, is a challenge. It is a sport which is almost always supplemental to schools. So it is, someone goes to an academy outside their school, although there are growing exceptions, but those are going to be very elite schools which are able to afford that, but also have coaching and other infrastructure. As organizations, we are not doing anything in the space of putting education, swimming into education. I think when you look at population scale policy changes, we have to be relevant to context. And when that context is so disparate in opportunity sets, you have to be careful with what you put into education systems. That's not to say that we can't have swim education as part of a growing up experience, and I think we have to do better, and which is Hakeem is deeply involved in that, in swim education, but also access to infrastructure for a much wider population. And I'll hand over there.
So, like having been part of the IT industry way back, when Nandan pulled me out of it. But, I talk about AI. That's the buzzword. And for me, AI is aquatic intelligence. Okay, we need to change that. Coming to curriculum, coming to the schooling system, and all of that. So, let's say where do people have access? Okay, so there's a big gap between those who still need access, but those who have access. Today, it's incredible how many swimming pools are there in Bangalore. Okay, I mean, last time I had a chat, I think the numbers were something like more than 5,000 or more swimming pools in Bangalore. Community use, in clubs, in apartment complexes, besides, of course, today when you're just talking about organized businesses like Cult, Machachi, Game Theory, I think they're close to 60 to 80 swimming pools in Bangalore of semi-Olympic size that are, pure business play. So it's incredible how much of infrastructure is getting created. Question that we also were asking when we started with OSWIM was, how do we improve the outcomes? As an engineer, you're thinking of hardware and software, right? I mean, you have existing hardware, how do you improve the outcomes? So the software for us was first for people, right? How do you build the quality of people? Because they make a difference in converting the outcomes of that hardware. So that's where OSWIM came in, and OSWIM's been playing a part, and there's a growing group of individuals who are creating that change in their communities. So today, teaching can happen in an apartment complex, it can happen in a school, it can happen in a club. We've got some great people and examples in the crowd here who are, doing some amazing job. Does it need to scale? For sure. There's still a massive gap. I hate to see empty pools. Empty pools, because today, like I said, mostly it's built for cosmetic reasons. It's part of the landscape. It's not built for purpose. It's not built for performance, right? Whatever the performance may be, not only competitive. So curriculum-wise, we've been working with OSWIM. We've been working with the Australian Swim Schools Association and the International Swim Schools Association. And today we have a beta curriculum that's also been created. It's called the Quality Inclusive, Aquatic Education Program that we've currently built to further support the teachers from their basic, so one is the teacher qualification, but to add to that, we have something that everyone can build on and work with. At some point, we hope there's a standardization of language, right? I mean, today in the formal education space, if someone says I'm in grade 5, whether they're in a state syllabus school or in an IB school, you know that predominantly a grade 5 child will have these skills or will have this level of knowledge. Today, when you ask people, do you know how to swim? It's either black or white. I know how to swim or I do not know how to swim. There's nobody able to define what is their level of swimming. So that's something that's work in progress, and it's being something that we are testing out, and it's been working. In terms of the infrastructure, I think again there's a long way to go. Today, while I've been involved with creating infrastructure, the recent project that has been completed in Ahmedabad at the Veer Savarkar Sports Complex that has hosted the Asian Aquatic Championships recently, and has been part of India's bid for the Commonwealth Games, is something that I was involved with an Italian company called Mirtha. So, now the quality of infrastructure, and in Australia, Mirtha has built some of the biggest aquatic facilities, including MSAC, the recent Parramatta pool, which has been winning quite a few awards, Marion Aquatic Centre in Adelaide, that's been hosting the Australian Olympic trials consistently since 2012. So some of the best infrastructure, in Australia, both for performance and community, because they build with Royal Life Saving. Australia, they do it in the remote communities. You want to build, create infrastructure. So we've been learning and observing from them what they're doing in Australia, and we're also seeing how that can be brought into India. So right now, Some of the infrastructure that I personally have been involved with are the big 50-meter competitive training pools and facilities. That said, the biggest gap when it comes to infrastructure is we've had, like I again described, we built the universities, big infrastructure, but we've not created the pathways. Right? So you build big infrastructure for competition, then you have now you have the 25-meter pools that are coming up for training and learn to swim. But there, so if I had to just give a very simple breakup of from 100 people, earlier it was focused only on one person. Now, with some of these other infrastructure coming up, 19 others are able to now engage with the water. There's still another 80% of the population that is not even getting, even those who have the interest, because the facilities are not made friendly for every member of the family to get in, whether it's a toddler, for non-swimmers. So let me put it that way, the 80% is non-swimmers. How do you get the 80% to start engaging with the water? They do not even need to know how to swim, but to engage with the water to just walk, play, have fun, rehab. Many elderly people need water, it's good for them. So creating spaces for community at large, it needs attention. It's not only about the big deep pools, but it's community spaces that are fun, attractive. So in Australia, when you talk about infrastructure, the infrastructure that I connected very closely with was the Sydney Olympic Park pool. Right? When I went there after 13 years, after swimming at the Olympics, and I saw it buzzing because they've got such an amazing space for the community. You just pay for the parking, and you pay for the entry in the pool, and you get free 3 hours parking free. That's the only limit. If you want to pay for parking later, so that's a soft way of getting people out, within 3 hours. But you come in as family and you have a lazy river, you got some slides, you got a splash pad, you got some fun elements. People can sit in a jacuzzi, relax, have fun, even if they don't know how to swim. And then next to that is the learn to swim space. The warm-up pool is converted into a learn to swim space with a movable floor and a movable wall. And then you have the competitive space that is there. So whatever I understood, roughly 55% of the revenue comes in from the recreation space, the fun area. Roughly 45% of the remaining revenue comes from the learn to swim. The big 50-meter pool is where they pump in money, because that needs money. That's not often revenue sustainable. So very often people have built big, large infrastructure and then say it's not sustainable, bad business model. And then forget that there are other steps before that need attention if we need to create that pathway. So that's why we need to think of infrastructure not only in isolation with big competitive pools, which are deep, but also think of community spaces that are attractive, safe, fun, and many other things can be done with the water alongside high performance training and swimming.
Hakeem, in addition to your business acumen, I think we might make you an Australian ambassador. You tell a much better story about Australia than me.
I've been doing it voluntary for a while.
It's wonderful. I remember that. Kat, I think you wanted to add something.
I just want to add something really small to that, to Hakeem's point. Listening to the discussion tonight, everything is big. Everything is huge. Let's start small. If you can build a small centre, lots of them, in lots of different places, that equals big, right? So for instance, I own a 10 by 5 pool. It is teeny tiny. I still fit 650 people a week in that. And that houses children, parents, families. So thinking about, I keep hearing about 50 metres, deep pools, 25 metres. Start small. Start somewhere smaller, and in each of your communities, put something in. My pool is inside a warehouse. It is literally inside little concrete. It has a sand-based floor. It's lined by vinyl. It has a little wall, little deck, and we fit that many people into it. So just my advice to India is that if you want to succeed, start here, then you can go to here. I hope that helps.
I mean, if I could just ask you, how many people are in your town? What's the population of your town?
We have 4,000 people in our town. It's tiny.
Okay,
It's
I mean,
teeny tiny.
So that's the context, right?
Yeah.
4,000 people, and she has 650 people in her pool.
Yeah. And there is another aquatic centre just down the road that is the public facility. So we actually have a lot of people come to our teeny tiny, put together, which didn't cost me a lot of money, pool. And I just renovate it once or twice a year. So what I'm saying is that if you want to make a difference, not everything has to be huge. It can start with one person in one space, one at a time. Okay? Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's perfect lesson to end on because I think a lot of us wait for someone else to find a solution, and I think this is a beautiful model to get started yourself. And I think we have a very small version of that with the Equal Hue Cricket Excellence Program for Women, which is supported by your team as well. It was just a simple attempt to start bridging this gap and creating a pathway for young women to stay in the sport. And I think every sport there are enough problems to solve in Indian sport and many easy steps to get started. We often want the big project and we want someone else to solve it. And I think great attitude to have is get started, do something small, and small things grow quite quickly actually.
So just do a little bit of math on that. So if you had 10 of those at 650 a week, that already adds up to a lot of people, right? Just a little extra bit.
So my name is Paul. I'm more into community building, and it's an ask than a question. I recently went and visited Lakshadweep as an island, and there are a lot of people there. And from a swimming point, there is nothing there. There's actually, as a Lakshadweep as an island, has a lot to offer. Andaman and Lakshadweep is purely island nations. If Australia can do something for us, or you can actually put up a course there, you can actually get swimmers out there to come to Bangalore to do something because they need, and their guilds are very big, but they don't know anything in the competitive swimming space. And if you can do something for us, it will be really great. That's a ask.
I think I will take that one away. I can think of a very small example in Bangalore. Actually, we had a collaboration between a surf life saving club in Australia in Coogee and the Mangaluru Surf Life Saving Club. So in that coastal swimming capability, trying to find ways to connect passionate clubs, small scale. So yes, I would take it away. It's a good point. Thank you. You have to keep it short so we can get a question, right?
Because the only thing there, because I've been there specifically in the context of Lakshadweep and the pool and them building a facility. Two things quickly. One is, Australia has a great model of saltwater pools, right? A lot of saltwater pools by the ocean side. The Bondi icebergs is very famous. So I think just I felt that they were complicating it a bit more. Then there could be a simpler thing that could be done. The second part is most of the there land up playing football, even though they've got the water there. Because the spaces are not safe, because there's a lot of jellyfish at times, and with natural waters you've got different things. So everyone knows how to engage with the water, but then quickly as they grow up they step back from it and play football. So their top sport is football, but I've told them that if you want a pool next time, someone shows up and we want to do a swim clinic there, which I did a small one. Very few people turned up, and I said, "Where's everyone?" I said, if you all are passionate about the water, I want to see everyone turn up. And then the government will wake up and will create something. But if it was football, there would be more people on the ground. So we need to, also get people to participate in pushing for infrastructure and show the need for it. But there can be also simpler ways of doing it, because drinking water there is extremely challenging. And if they want to fill a pool with fresh water, with challenges of electricity and everything else, was a big thing. So maybe from these saltwater pools, there could be a starting point.
So my little pool is actually salt and magnesium, and it has UV and ozone. So 4 types of sanitizing agents, and it costs me next to nothing per year to run. So I put usually every 10 to 12 weeks, I put a bag of magnesium, and it costs me $60 Australian. So I don't spend a lot of money on chemicals per year. When you're looking at something like chlorine, these are a much bigger pools, obviously a different scale to mine, but you're looking at a lot of reduced costs if you can use other methods to sanitize your pools as well. Just a little thought on what you're talking about in terms of infrastructure and cost-saving measures as well.
I think it's gentleman here.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Pranav. Well, this is was a point Hakim made earlier about this some one kid gets identified and is told he's very good, yeah, told he's very good, and others end up just exiting the system. Now, my question is, in any sport, including swimming, for how are coaches trained to like in a sense that where they end up are able to keep the athlete motivated, grounded in either way, either when he's doing very well, he or she is doing very well, or in a so badly, like not well enough. Sometimes they feel like just giving up the sport, And so, how do you address it? Because that requires a lot of man management in every sport. Now, how is that addressed while grooming and coaching, like swim teachers, for example?
For me, retention rates are really, really important. It's a business model. I don't have a business if I don't retain clientele. So for us, about your programming is really important. Start at the base level, start with your teeny tiny people, your babies, your preschoolers, and then you build from there. If you can start at grassroots and you keep people and you keep them going through these programs, then that's how you keep people involved. And even if they don't move into a competitive scene, they still continue to have a love of water, a love of swimming, and then can pass it on to family members and friends, and they get to love that and they can share that with other people as well. So I believe starting at the very, very bottom at those grassroots is really important.
And if I could just add to that, like I said, it's also important once those fundamentals are in place, people, they love the water and you stay connected with water. Again, a lot of the classes usually are once a week, so you just stay connected with the water at least once a week from a health and fitness perspective. And you never know when either the interest or the ability both coincide to allow you to compete later, So we are usually in a system where you go all in or nothing at all, right? There's no way of staying in touch in a slow, steady, constant manner. We need to facilitate that.
But,
Hi,
I
very
won't
good
hold
evening.
fast.
My name is Suman. I had first exposure to swimming back in school, and then the journey continued. The challenge, like already we discussed in the panel, I'll get to the question. The question is, how did Australia build the culture of swimming? Because that really keeps going, right? This is something that we lack. We're still talking about building a sporting culture, but let's come back to Australia. How did you guys build the swimming culture back there? So that'll be a learning for everyone, curiosity.
We actually just don't build a swimming culture. It's part of our lifestyle. We live in a place where you can drown every day, so therefore we need to do that as part of our life. We get up every day and we think, how do we stay alive today and not fall in the water? So that is not part of what we do as a curriculum. We do it as part of it as an everyday, experience. For me, I'm a mother of four. I have 4 children, and I did not want my children to drown. So what do? We start from the very beginning when they're little. We introduce them to water. We do for water familiarisation activities, and then we move forward from there. And so that continues throughout their lifetime. And the only way to keep it safe and it becomes a culture is if you nurture it and you love it and you market it. And for us, back in the day, Laurie Lawrence had the, Kids Alive Do the 5. Our drowning rates for under 5s were crazy 10 to 15 years ago. Now they're this. They're very, very minimal because we spend a lot of time working on our little people, making sure they're safe. And as they grow, they then have younger people below them. And so that infrastructure is in place as we go forward. We're not necessarily a competitive country, even though that we are. It is a very, very small percentage of our swimmers are actually move on to competitive now. I've been looking into the statistics recently, and it's a really, really small percentage. And so for us, it's about maintaining a lifestyle and staying safer in the water.
Can't top that. The only thing I would say is that Australia is a small population and it has a lot of small towns. 40, 50, 60 years ago, there were swimming pools put in towns, big swimming pools put in small towns. I do think today that level of infrastructure development would be very expensive to replicate. So I suspect there's a bit of planning that happened a long time ago, and whether it was because it was an easy thing to do, I don't know, but there's a bit of history to some of that, some of the swimming pools that we have that, now it's a planning permission, it's an expensive exercise. So, yeah, it's got a very long tail, some of those decisions from probably around the time that Australia hosted the Olympics in the 50s. Sometimes that's the demonstration effect. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the context, because whatever little I recollect is 1970s, there was a big push of building massive, number of pools across Australia, and that it was the backdrop of one of the Olympics that motivated them to do it, and that's facilitated to some extent, is what I'm aware of. But.
First of all, thank you for such an insightful talk, actually, all the panelists, actually. And so my question was regarding to the sport nutrition and strengthening. I mean, my only qualification is like a parent whose kid is like learning swimming for 1.5 years. He is doing his swimming in a 50-meter pool. But the thing I see is that, I mean, like, there's nothing about nutrition told. I mean, there's nothing about strengthening. I mean, what they do is make them swim for 2 hours. That's on endurance, but there's nothing about mental aspect. But I think that most of the Australian sports people are like doing great job, whether it be cricket or any sports actually. They look into the mental aspect. So how can Australia-India collaboration can like help in these aspects actually? Hakeem already mentioned livelihood and the sport education aspect, but yes, the sports nutrition, the mental aspect of athletes, how can this collaboration help? Yeah, that's all.
In that question, which some of that's school age, some of it's sort of on a trajectory towards elite sport, what we're finding at the moment is there's quite a few institutions in India. Some of those are government affiliated, some of those are private affiliated. There are Australian institutions increasingly looking for ways to partner. So some of those might be swimming, some of those might be cricket, a number of different sports. But I think that's where that enthusiasm in both countries for pursuing sports excellence then drives institutions who are sometimes looking for commercial partnerships, sometimes they're looking for talent recruitment, but you find ways to benefit both ends. So I see it happening. I see more of it happening, but what I see, to come right back to where we started, Hakeem, when you said people and decision makers aren't thinking about swimming, people and decision makers are thinking about sports and sports success. If that becomes part of your job, whether you're an administrator or a business person or whatever it is, then you start to look to ways to make it happen. And that's when you look for institutional partners and other connections. So there is a bit of a push from the top as well as a grassroots piece to this. So I do see those kind of movements happening. I know you were talking about nutrition in particular, but yes, it is increasing. That's, to finish it, that's one of the reasons we're here tonight. We picked swimming. We've had a great piece of good fortune around Kat being here and delivering swimming training and the expertise you have. But it's meant to spark ideas and conversation. So I do hope 2 things out of tonight. One, everyone goes for a swim soon. I know I want to. But that, whether or not swimming is what you do all the day, or whether you're a sports administrator or just someone who's interested in opportunities out there, that you make a connection tonight or take away an idea or follow up afterwards, and that we've helped drive that forward in a very small way in a very big landscape. So I think I'll end with that. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.